So chapter 4 is the tissue level. These are the outcomes. You can read it. But tissues are group of cells, group of specialized cells that they do a specific function. We have 4 different types of tissues: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissues. Epithelial is anything, we're talking about tissue level now, anything that cover our body, line from inside, or gland. Cover, line, gland, epithelial cells. Connective are the types that connect things together. This is where the name came from. Muscles, we have different types of muscles: skeletal muscles attached to the skeleton, in your heart, cardiac muscles. Anywhere else, smooth muscles. We will cover the details. And then the nervous tissues. We have 4 types of tissues that we need to know. Here is the epithelial, cover, line, or gland. Connective, and I always say connective tissues, these tissues are by exclusion. Translation. What's a cartilage? What type of tissues? You say it like this. Is it covering or lining? Like covering skin. Lining inside. Is covering or lining? No. Is it muscle? Is your cartilage muscle? Of course it's not muscle. Is it nervous system? That's it. Connective tissue. How about the blood? Covering, lining? No. Contract muscles? No. Nervous system? No. Connective tissue. How about fat? How about lymph? How about bone? How about anything else? All of it's connective tissue. Connective tissue by exclusion. Okay? And then we'll talk about muscles and nervous system. So epithelial, it can be covering, lining, or glands. And generally speaking, since it is covering or lining or glands, this gives you the function covering for protection, right? Covering for permeability, you allow things to go in or out. Like when you drink something, does it move, cross, and you get absorbed? This is epithelium. Sensation, like your skin, sensation. Or glands for secretions. These epithelial cells will always have a basement membrane at the base and usually do not contain blood vessels. This is important to know. They are attached and based on the basement membrane, avascular, A, AN, AM, IM, all of this means no. Avascular, no vessels. Some of these epithelial tissues are specialized, and we will talk about this. This is like one of the epithelial cells. This is the apex, the upper part, and this is the lower part. It's just regular cells. And these cells are kept together by different means that we will talk about. Intercellular connection, one cell, connect them to stay like here in your skin. Each 2 cells are connected. The cells are connected to the underneath basement membrane. And these connections are actually important to know. Okay, so I can ask you about this. What are the different types of connections that connect the epithelial cells? This is a good question. So the first type is called CAMs, or cell adhesion molecules. And we will talk about it. I will show you the pictures. You have gap junction, tight junction, and desmosomes. This is what I'm going to ask you about. What's the gap junction? What's the tight junction? And what is the desmosome? Let's do this from the pictures. This is the first one, gap junction. Simply, here is one cell, the blue. Here is another cell, the yellow. And those connecting them together are called gap junctions, because there is a gap, but you make a junction. Look at this. They are separated. But look at the junction that you're making. Why are you making this junction? For diffusion of ions and small molecules. You wanted to transfer something from here to here, or from here to here. This is the first type, and we call it gap junction. There is a gap, but you make a junction to transfer. Second one is called tight junction. There is no gap. They go together like this, very close to each other. Gap junction. Tight junction. So for this tight junction, there is no space in between those two. They are actually fusing. So they do not allow things to pass. Nothing is allowed to pass in a tight junction. The next is called desmosomes. And desmosomes will have something called CAMs, or cell adhesive molecules. Here is one cell, here is one cell, here is a CAM, here is a CAM. This is going to adhere to each other. This is how you keep them. So the three things that I mentioned is how the cells are connected to each other. It's not like one cell here and one cell there. They are not separated. They are attached to each other and to the basement membrane by the mean of these different things. Here is something called hemidesmosome, and hemidesmosome is connecting the cells to the basement membrane underneath. So always there is a basement membrane under these cells in the epithelium, and the basement membrane consists of two layers. One of them is called basal lamina. Basal is coming from base at the bottom, and reticular lamina, which is the one that will make it stronger. Okay, now classification. We're going to classify these tissues in two different ways. Number one, by the shape of the cells. How does it look like? Number two, how many layers? Are we following? Two ways. If the cells looks squeezed like this, flat, we call it squamous. Squamous, squeezed. If it looks like a cube, cuboidal. If it looks like a column, columnar. This is from the shape. Clear? Are we clear? Three types. The second is it just one layer of these cells or multiple layers? If it is one layer, we call it simple. If it is multiple layer, we call it stratified. What's stratified? Strata means layers. Strata. Okay? Stratified. So look at this one here. What is this cell here? This is squeezed, flat, right? Squamous. Is this a simple or stratified? Simple. It's one layer only. So what do you call it together? Simple, squamous. Simple, one layer. Squamous, the cells are flat. How about this? Is it simple or stratified? Stratified, multiple layers, right? What type of cells? Look at this. If you look at the bottom, you will see cuboidal cells. If you look at the top, it is squamous cells. So now you're confusing us, like squamous at the top and cuboid at the bottom. No, if that's the case, we go with the top. I don't care about the bottom. This is how they agreed to name it. So if you see stratified, stratified what? Squamous or cuboidal? You have both of them. It's the top layer. In this case, the top layer is squamous. See how it's squeezed flat? So we call it stratified squamous. The next one is cuboidal. Looks like a cube. One layer, simple, multiple layers. And look at the top. Stratified cuboidal. Next one, columnar. Looks like a column. Simple, one, multiple. We have different types here. Can you see this? But what's the top one? Columnar. So I will ask you about it generally speaking, but labeling, I will tell you. If there is a labeling, I will tell you guys about it. So squamous can be simple, which is one layer only. If this one layer is lining from inside, we call it endothelium. If it is lining a body cavity, we call it mesothelium. The other one is stratified squamous, and this is for physical protection. Stratified squamous, physical protection, like your skin. Stratified squamous, protection. It contains keratin to add strength and make it water resistance, and that's why you don't lose the water. In this part, you need to know the examples. What does it mean? And examples. This is what I want you to know. Simple squamous. What does it mean? Simple is one layer. Squamous, squeezed, flat cells. And the other thing is location. Location. Where do you have it? Okay. You have it lining the body cavities, lining the vessels, lining the cornea, the alveoli. So meaning and location is important. Stratified squamous epithelium. Multiple layers. The top is squamous. Location, examples. Tongue, skin. How about the cuboidal? We have simple and stratified. Simple, one layer of cuboidal cells. Where? Glands, ducts, like these ducts of the kidney, and thyroid gland. And this is the one that's responsible for secretion and absorption. Stratified, this is just a rare one lining some of the ducts. Gland is like this, a group of cells, and there is a duct coming out of it. Okay? If that's the case, this gland is called exocrine gland. Group of cells producing something, leave through the duct. Exocrine. No duct, it makes secretions and just fall in between the cells. We call it endocrine. So what is lining the ducts? Stratified cuboidal epithelium. Transitional epithelium is simply an epithelium that's make a transit depending on the condition. Look at this. Your urinary bladder, this is the best example. This type of epithelium will look like this if it's empty. If you put urine and you start to fill it, it will change and transit to this shape. It goes like this to this. Transition between different shapes. So if it is empty, it will look like this. If you put urine and start to fill it, it will change the shape and look like this. So transition from shape to shape. Example is the most important thing. Bladder, urinary bladder. Here's a traditional epithelium. Urinary bladder is enough. Columnar, it can be also simple or stratified. However, there is a third type here that's called pseudostratified. Simple means one layer. Are we following? Simple is one layer. Stratified is multiple, right? Some of these, it is simple, it's one layer, but because they are squeezed and compressed, they give you a false impression that it is stratified. It is not. I will show you the picture, and this is called the pseudostratified. Location is also important. Stomach, small intestine, a large intestine for the simple. Pseudostratified, nasal cavities, trachea, and bronchi. Stratified columnar is the pharynx, anus, and epithelium. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Here is the simple. It's in intestine and colon. Pseudostratified, location is important. And this is the trachea, bronchi. These are the most important ones. And if you look at it, it looks like as if it is multiple layers, but if you get one of those, look at this, start from here, going all the way down, it's one cell. But because they are squeezed, it gives you false, which is pseudo. Stratified, location is important, pharynx, the gland duct, urethra, and the anus. Glandular epithelium is the next one, which is different types of glands. What I wanted to know here is, I just mentioned it. It is a group of cells making a gland, making secretion. Do you have a duct or not? If you do, the duct will take it out. Exo. We call it exocrine. Crine means secretion. Exocrine, secretion out. If there is no duct, you call it endocrine because the secretions goes in between the cells. Endocrine. Okay, and there are different types of glands. I will talk about it later.